Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, we're going to have a look at this interview done by a person called Amjad Taha. Amjad Taha is a UAE specialist or political analyst who talks about affairs of the Muslim world as well as affairs within the UK and Europe and the West as well. And he's been brought onto GB News. Now, anybody who's brought onto GB News generally, and he's conveyed as an expert about Islam and Muslims, is not going to look good. And to be quite frank, when we watch this, you'll see exactly what I mean. This doesn't look good and it's full of lies, deceptions and propaganda. But hey, let's just take a listen to it, inshallah.
Welcome back. Well, Middle East expert Amjad Taha joins me now in the studio. And to be honest, I was going to ask you about foreign affairs, and then we've just had a little chat in the break. And you've been talking about Britain's extremism problem. You're somebody who speaks out against anti-Semitism. You speak out in favour of moderate Islam as opposed to extremist Islam. What's your analysis of the state of affairs in Britain? Because we've got the Labour government right now considering defining Islamophobia in a way that some say might open the back door to blasphemy laws.
I think you have more. Well, thank you for having me. And I think you have more extremists in UK than you have in the Middle East.
Really?
At this stage, absolutely. The things that some of the
He says that there's more extremists here in the UK than the Middle East, and she goes, really, is that the case? Oh my gosh, there's all these problems and terror threats and extremist Muslims running around. Oh no, what's going on? This is exactly why this type of person is been brought on. He is what we call a native informant. He's a person that's used by the West, by the non-Muslims, by the anti-Muslim, brigade, etc., who use it to justify their prejudice against Islam and Muslims. That's why he's brought on. He's brought on to justify their prejudice. By him turning around and saying, yeah, you should really be scared of Islam and Muslims because these Muslims, they are, terrible people. They're full of extremism and problems. And, you've got a lot of them here in the UK. So, you should be scared and you should monitor them and you should have policies against them and you should have rules and laws and criminal laws against them. This is his agenda. This is why he's brought on to things like GB News.
Islamists say in various mosques, and we have been seeing that online, the terminology they use, the analysis they make, the statements they actually make, they would not be able to say it all the way in Afghanistan, for example, or in Iraq.
So how has this been allowed to flourish in the UK? What's your analysis of that?
In the name of democracy. So
he goes on to mention about the Islamists and Muslim Brotherhood. But before he said that, he talked about how in the mosques, in the masjids, in the UK, they say these terrible things. He doesn't give any examples of what they're saying. He doesn't explain which mosques are saying this. He just said they're mosques and you will see it online and they say these extremist things, against the non-Muslims, for Islam, etc. And there's no context towards what he's saying. Now, the majority of Muslims, or the majority of mosques within Britain, are run by either Sufi Barelvi community or the Debunking community within the UK. There are some mosques which are run by Arabs, but they're normally the minority. And there's some mosques maybe run by different organizations like Jamaat-e-Islam, or even maybe people who are affiliated with Ikhwan al-Muslimin, but they are the minority. But what he's trying to present is that the mosques throughout the UK are promoting some sort of hatred, extremism, Islamism. This brilliant word that they love to use and bandy around to say, oh, there's these Islamists. Really, their problem is with Islam and Muslims, but it's more politically correct to say, oh, we don't have a problem with Islam. We just have a problem with an interpretation of Islam called Islamism. So this is what he will tend to do. You'll see this throughout. He'll talk about Islamism and he uses buzzwords like extremism, which really are empty words, to be quite frank.
The Muslim Brotherhood, who are the Islamists, who are the main ones, are ruling and controlling in various press when it comes to the Muslim society and community in the UK. They control the whole narrative, and the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists are the radical Islamists. They're the Islamists, and they use the freedom of speech in a manner where they will be anti-Semite in the name of freedom of speech. I absolutely stand against that, because I think anti-Semitism is not an opinion, it's a crime, and a crime against humanity.
So he says the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK control the narrative of the Muslims. They control the press, they control the media in terms of the media expression of Islam and Muslims. And so what he's trying to say is that these guys, they are the extremists, they're the Islamists, they are controlling the Muslim community, they are promoting anti-Semitism, all in the name of freedom of expression, etc. And it just seems, incredible that he can make these types of broad generalizations about the Muslim community, because this is not about Ikhwan al-Muslimin, this is not about the Muslim Brotherhood, this is just about fear-mongering amongst the wider non-Muslim society who are largely ignorant of the Muslim community in order to make them feel that there is a problem amongst Muslims. This is what he's doing, and he's using Ikhwan al-Muslimin as just a Trojan horse to try to create suspicion against the entire Muslim community. This is his agenda. And when he talks about anti-Semitism, he doesn't just say this is a crime. He says this is a crime against humanity. This is like the worst of all types of crimes. This is not like just racism, regular prejudice that is criminal according to the UK law. You can't be anti-Semite or anti-Semitic. But what he's saying, no, this is an actual crime against humanity. To be against the Jews is a crime against humanity. This is effectively what he's saying. And obviously, I don't support anti-Semitism or any form of racism. But the point is that he's trying to over-exaggerate the problem in order to then justify that, you need to be really scared of the Muslims because, they've got these people going, undertaking actions and crimes against humanity. In his words, anti-Semitism.
And once you allow that, on the 7th of October, for example, when it happened, the genocide against the Israelis, what I saw and what we witnessed is the fact that some Islamists all the way from here in Small Heath, in Alam Rock, in Birmingham, and other areas.
By the way, he mentioned Small Heath, Alam Rock, and Birmingham quite often throughout his interview. Just note this.
We saw their voices. It was pro-Hamas.
Yes.
And Hamas as a force which carried that genocide.
So he's talking about the protests that took place after the October 7th. But this is the narrative that the West, certain people within the West like to push. The mainstream media like to push that anything which is pro-Palestinian or anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian is just what they consider pro-Hamas. So they'll call it pro-Hamas protests. And anything which is anti-Israel or anti-Zionism is called anti-Semitic, even though we know that Jews themselves, there are many Jews who are pro-Palestine and there are many Jews who are anti-Israel as well. So we know that this actually exists. But anyway, let's just carry on.
In Gaza and also in Israel, it's actually the armed forces of the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood in my country, for example, UAE, where Muslim, where Arab, is banned, but however is not banned in the United Kingdom.
So it should be banned?
Absolutely, because they use the freedom of speech.
So he's saying that Hamas is basically an armed wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. So he doesn't look at Hamas or any of the groups, resistance military groups that exist amongst the Palestinians, and there are a number of them. Hamas is only one of them amongst other ones. It might be a prominent one, but he sees them as just an armed wing of Ikhwan al-Muslimin or Muslim Brotherhood. He doesn't see them as that there are going to be movements, military movements or militias who are going to organize themselves to resist occupation. He doesn't see them as that. He doesn't see the Palestinians as even having a right to that, the action of resisting occupation. Under the Geneva Convention, it's considered legal and moral and allowable for people who are illegally occupied or belligerently occupied by force, that they have the right to militarily resist. Obviously, they caveat that saying that they have to follow certain laws of the rules of war, etc., etc. But the point is they give the right to resist this type of occupation. But he's just saying, these are just the military wing and we ban them in the UAE, but you don't ban them in the UK. Well, guess what? If the UAE, a dictatorship, a autocratic dictatorship, if you go back into their history, you'll find that they were, set up by the British, or if Saudi Arabia, another dictatorship, are the criteria by which we can say what should be banned or not banned. It's a joke. How can you use a dictatorship, a absolute monarchy, autocratic rule as the guidelines by which what is acceptable and unacceptable. It's an absolute joke. And for people in Britain, for GB News to be going, oh yeah, that sounds like good advice to me. If the UAE have banned them, we should follow suit. We should follow suit. What kind of nonsense is that?
To censor your right to speak against them. And when they use the terminology Islamophobia, it's just to stop you from criticizing the Islamist and the Muslim Brotherhoods or all form of radicalism.
So he mentions about Islamophobia, and he says that the only reason why they use this Islamophobia is because the term Islamophobia is to prevent you from criticizing these extremists or these Ikhwanul Muslimin type people. This is just a complete joke. When mosques are being, their windows are being destroyed, when disgusting graffiti is being scrawled over mosques and masjids and Muslim schools, when Qur'ans are being desecrated inside masajid, when sisters' hijabs are being ripped off because sisters are being told, we don't want to see these types of hijabs here, when people are going around campaigning against Muslims being allowed to have halal meat. What do you call this? What do you call it when a sister is attacked? What do you actually call that? Is when people are saying, oh, this is anti-Muslim hate crime, or that this is specifically targeting Muslim community, are they just simply saying this because they're trying to hide and protect the fact that people want to support Hamas? That's not the reality. They're saying that there's a real, there is an underlying problem in the West, in the UK, in which Muslims are being attacked. We saw that in the Southport riots recently, the riots that took place because of the 3 girls that were killed in Southport. Mosques up and down the country were being attacked. Mosque in Southport was being, they tried to dismantle it and destroy it. Muslims were being attacked. Dawah stalls were being attacked throughout the country. Muslims didn't feel safe. What do you call that? Do you call that just simply... it's just an expression of freedom that's allowed for them? Whereas when Muslims turn around and say, look, this is a rise of anti-Muslim hatred that's coming out against us, and this is something that needs to be addressed. If people say that and then turn around and they say, oh, you're just saying that because you're trying to hide the extremism, you're trying to prevent legitimate criticism against extremists. No, this is something fundamental. There's a problem within British society and generally wider Western society, which believes that all the problems that exist is down to Islam and Muslims. That they are the problem. This creating the environment of hatred, and we know when you have created an environment of hatred, what happens? It results in violence. And this is what we have seen in some parts of Britain today as well, against the Muslims, where Muslims have faced violence by the wider non-Muslim population who've been incited, who've been radicalized by people like GB News and the people that they bring on to try to gaslight them into thinking that Muslims are a problem.
The fact that Islamic Relief, for instance, is registered as a charity here, but all the way in Saudi Arabia, in UAE and other countries is banned because of the investigation that showed that this charity is sending money all the way to some terrorist groups in the Middle East.
Yes.
It tells you a lot.
Yeah, so he's now talking about an Islamic Relief, saying that they've got links to Ikhwanul Muslimin. Now, I don't know much about Islamic Relief. I've seen that they collect money here in the UK, but then to turn around and say, well, because they're banned in the Middle East, banned in Saudi, banned in UAE, because apparently they may have links to Ikhwanul Muslimin. Again, that says more about the UAE and Saudi Arabia than it does says about Islamic Relief. And for GB News to be saying, you know what, yeah, if Saudi bans them, maybe we should ban them as well. That is... like I said, it doesn't make any sense. How can you turn around and look at dictatorships as a model of governance, telling us what should be right or wrong? Yeah, and let's be very clear, these dictatorships, whether that's UAE or Saudi Arabia, they're not fundamentally implementing Islam. They are trying to justify normalization of not just with the state of Israel, but normalizing liberal, secular, capitalist culture upon the Muslim community and Muslim Ummah at large.
What do you think then? This Islamophobia definition, obviously people are worried about it in the UK because it could prevent legitimate criticism of people who have behaved in an extreme way. Absolutely. I mean, moderate Muslims are saying, look, we don't want to be accused of being terrorists. We don't want to be accused of being members of child rape gangs. We just want to live our lives harmoniously with British people. They're the ones.
Yeah, that's right. Ordinary Muslims don't want to be accused of terrorism, and the ordinary Muslims don't want to be accused of being members of grooming rape gangs. I don't know why that would be, why even have to mention that point? But the point here is that when Muslims are being accused of these things, you guys, GB News, you're doing the accusations, you're fueling the fire, you're turning around and saying, oh, there's a problem, there's a fundamental problem in the heart of the Muslims that, why is it that the Muslim community have so many grooming gangs and why they're raping? And remember, I did a video on this and I exposed the utter lies, misinformation, and just stupidity and propaganda when it comes to the issue of this grooming gangs. As I mentioned in the video, and please have a look at this video, inshallah, I mentioned that 89% of child sexual abuse cases and convictions are undertaken by white population, even though the white population only makes 82% of the population in the UK. So of those that are recorded in terms of the ethnicity, the majority of them are done by white population. Not just the majority, but disproportionate to their actual numbers of population in this country. And Asians, who represent 9%, are disproportionately less likely to engage in activities, criminal activities like child sexual abuse. So the Asians are actually less likely, yet Asians, and specifically Muslims, are being disproportionately blamed for sexual abuse and sexual grooming gangs. Yeah, it's a stereotype. It's prejudice. That's what's happening. Muslims are being stereotyped based upon the actions of individuals who undertake criminality, and that's being used as a way to generalize the entire Muslim population. Muslims shouldn't have to, defend this. Just like white Christians are not defending white Christian groomers and child abusers, whether that's in the church setting or elsewhere.
Who are calling out the extremists in their midst. Where do you stand on things you would have heard about the story of the Batley school teacher who taught a history lesson about Muhammad and used a depiction of Muhammad in a cartoon? He's gone into hiding. Another school child dropped a Quran. Suddenly he was rounded on by members of the Muslim community in that area and forced to publicly repent.
This is the line where we shouldn't, the diversity is accepted, but in the same time we shouldn't harm anybody's religion. In the same time, what you have in here is Islamist Muslim Brotherhood, and they control the narrative in various stuff. For example, the grooming when it happened of the children and all that, and the raping of children in Britain because of certain members of the Muslim society.
I really hate that. He said certain members of the Muslim society. No, when white groomers are convicted of child sexual exploitation, abuse, they're not talked about as members of the Christian society. Yeah, they're just talked about as individuals. They don't even mention that they happen to be members of the British society or members of the English society. They're just individuals. So why even talk about as members of the Muslim society? It's just disingenuous. This type of approach. Muslims have nothing to apologize or condemn because we're not collectively responsible for the blame of what individual criminals do. Just like we wouldn't blame Christians as a whole because of what the Catholic Church has done in terms of the abuse cases that they did in Ireland or in Britain or in Spain or Italy or France. In France, 216,000 children were abused by the Catholic Church in France alone. Now, we don't expect all Christians to have to come out and condemn, or all Christians to come out and apologize for these actions, because we look at this as individual failings, even though, by the way, when it came to the churches, that was systemic abuse. Yeah, they were covering it up. They were hiding what was occurring in that situation. So that's a slightly different issue. But generally, you don't hear this in the society that all Christians have to condemn what other Christians have done as a criminal act.
Why didn't we have a protest as much as we had it for Gaza in the street, and raising their pictures and asking the justice to bring them back into prison, at least, or at least put the trial back and so on? Why didn't we have that?
Well, what is he talking about here? So he's basically saying that, look at the Muslims there. effectively his argument is this: is the Muslims' outrage is selective. You know, they're speaking out against Palestine and they're protesting against this. But why didn't the Muslim community come out when within their own Muslim society there were these grooming gangs and child sexual abuse cases and rapes, etc.? Why did they come out and protest against this? Again, you know, how is it that we as Muslims are meant to protest and apologize and condemn when we ourselves are not we're not responsible for this? Most Muslims didn't know that this was occurring. Most Muslims didn't know any of these perpetrators or victims that took place. None of this, you know, it's hard to explain, but, you know, come on, man. When a non-Muslim commits a crime, we don't expect all non-Muslims, you know, who happen to be white and the perpetrator was white, to come out and protest against that white person. In the same way, we don't turn around and say all black people have to come out if there's some person of black color has undertaken a crime. We don't expect the whole of the black community. So why should we expect the Muslim community? There's a reason why protests took place in the UK in regards to what's happening in Palestine. Firstly, is that what we witnessed is what even the ICJ says is a possible or plausible genocide that's taking place. Secondly, Britain is supplying weapons to Israel in order to perpetrate this genocide, this plausible genocide and ethnic cleansing. So people are protesting in this country because they're turning around and saying, we don't agree with what a Zionist entity is doing, but also we don't agree with what Britain is doing. Britain, in terms of supplying them with weapons and supplying them with political and moral support, we don't agree with this. This is part of the reason why they came out and protested, because this was done by using taxpayers' money, ordinary people's money, and people wanted to come out and say, no, you shouldn't be using our money. You shouldn't be using the claims of representing Britain to supply them with weapons. This is why they came out to protest, as well as the fact that they were witnessing some horrific crimes being perpetrated by the Zionist entity. Honestly, it's completely different to a few individuals who undertook criminal behavior. Again, watch my video about grooming gangs where I completely destroy the myth.
That's because you have the Muslim Brotherhood, who are the party that organize this protest and controls the community when to go out and not to go out, and it controls everything.
So he claims that the reason why there was no protest in regards to the grooming gangs, even though majority of Muslims were like horrified by it and the fact that they weren't responsible for it. But he's saying the reason why, nothing to do with that, but the reason why is because Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Muslim Brotherhood, controls the Muslim community, you know, and tells us when to go out and when not to go out. Complete jokes. You know, most Muslims in the UK are not part of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Like I mentioned at the beginning, most of the mosques in the UK are, you know, run by Sufi Muslims or Debunking Muslims. They're the majority of mosques in the UK. They don't have any allegiances or alliances with Ikhwan al-Muslimin. So this is a complete red herring. This is, again, it's about agenda driven. UAE has an agenda. Part of the reason why they're against Ikhwan al-Muslimin isn't because they're against Ikhwan al-Muslimin. They're against the idea of political Islam and what it means and represents. And so Ikhwan al-Muslimin are just a convenient, you know, scapegoat to talk about political Islam. Anyone who talks about politics and Islam, you know, they're Ikhwan, they're extremists, they're Islamists. This is what he's trying to push, this type of, you know, false narrative. And you know what it is? The reason why he's pushing this false narrative is because Muslims are sick and tired of their rulers, the collusions with the Zionists, the collusions with the West, the fact that they oppress their own population, these rulers. They're sick and tired of this. They're sick and tired of the violations of the Sharia law that these rulers get away with. That's why they're sick and tired of, you know, this is the concern that these rulers have. And so they use these lackeys, but these people that they paid shills, pro-UAE, pro-Zionist shills that come out in order to promote utter rubbish and nonsense, reality is justifying Islamophobia. This is what he's doing. And so this is what they do, is they push these types of people out to justify the negative perceptions of Muslims, saying that anything that is talked about politics is Ikhwan al-Muslimin. If Muslims are talking about politics, even protesting against the genocide, that's Ikhwan al-Muslimin, that's extremists, that's Islamists, that's, you know, supporting terrorism, etc., pro-Hamas, etc. All of this as a way to try to prevent anybody from the Muslim community talking about politics, critiquing the rulers, critiquing the path of pro-Zionist policies of the Muslim countries, of normalizing with a nation, with a state or an entity that genocides and ethnically cleanses the Palestinians. This is what it is. It's about preventing anybody from speaking out against this. If you speak out against this, you happen to be Muslim. You're Ikhwan, you're an Islamist, you're an extremist, you're a fundamentalist. They throw all these words out to you in order to try to scaremonger people into silence, as well as to generate hatred against the wider population, to listen to what's being said, which is, hold on, there's a genocide taking place. Trump's talking about ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians of Gaza. That's not right. That's not moral. That's not just. But instead of anybody talking about that, what they're doing, we're scared of the Islamists. We're scared of Ikhwan Muslimin that's infiltrate every level of society.
When you have illegal immigrants coming all the way to Britain, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood all the way in Al-Amraq, all the way in Small Heath, all the way in Birmingham and Sheffield.
Hallam Rock, Small Heath, Birmingham. I don't know, he must have a problem with Birmingham, yeah.
What they do, they actually bring them lawyers, change the cases. They literally work on changing their cases where it fits the Home Office that they're going to guarantee them citizenship or a refugee status.
So this is complete, utter lies. So he's saying that Ikhwan Muslimin, what they do is they get these illegal immigrants that have come over to the UK, they help them get citizenship by lying, purposely getting lawyers to purposely lie on their application form in order to grant them citizenship. He's going, I know this. Trust me, bro. I know this. This is what occurs in Allen Rock, Small Heath. Yeah. Again, maybe he's going to talk about Baldsley Green next. But, he's talking about these things. He's saying this is what's occurring. They lie upon the application forms to get these illegal, military-aged, migrants that come into our country and get them residency to fit the criteria. That's just complete and utter lies. Anybody who knows the Muslim community and Muslims who watch this from the UK know this is complete false that Ikhwan Muslimin have a team of lawyers that are going around trying to get illegal immigrants citizenship in the UK. I don't know where he's getting this information from.
And what they do after these guys become a citizen, they become loyal to the person that helped them to get the citizenship. And then what happens if they become a member of the council, or they become a member of the parliament, or they become an activist or a journalist? They're loyal to the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood.
So that sounds like a complete joke. So basically, these illegal migrants come to the UK. Ikhwan Muslimin has a team of lawyers. What they then do is they lie upon the application in order to get them residency. These illegal migrants now become fully citizens of Britain and now have their loyalty to Ikhwan Muslimin. Then these illegal migrants that are now they become naturalized citizens of Britain, become MPs, councillors and MPs and activists, but their real loyalty is to Ikhwan Muslimin, and so they infiltrate. They are like a Trojan horse. They try to, a fifth column that infiltrates the seats of power within Britain in order to then bring about this Islamist, fundamentalist, extremist change within Britain. This is what he's trying to say. It's so hard to demonstrate how utterly stupid this is, but it is, trust me, utterly stupid.
Salafism, all type of radicalism, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all that is started in radicalization at the first stage, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, which is exactly when the review in the parliament happened here in 2015.
So he's now talking about this conveyor belt theory that Ikhwan Muslimin radicalizes people and then slowly they become ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Yeah. It's just utter scaremongering.
He spoke about that the Muslim Brotherhood stand against the morals and the values of the British people, and it's dangerous, and it's a secret society. He uses schools, mosques and other places to
indoctrinate.
If you look at her face, she's like horrified. Oh my gosh, mosques, schools, councils, MPs, they've all been indoctrinated by Ikhwan al-Muslimin, these extremist Islamists, and they're now infiltrating different sections within society. And this is what they do. And then it leads them to become Al-Qaeda and ISIS, because really they're secretly Al-Qaeda, ISIS. And she's there like thinking, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Absolutely.
But Amjad, we're running out of time. What's the solution here? What should the British authorities now be doing to stop this, to try and stop the extremists in our midst? I mean, it's extraordinary for you to suggest that Britain has more extremists in the Middle East when you consider Iran.
Yeah, there is an investigation I came across, and a lot of studies that I came across, and I heard from people in Birmingham, for example.
Birmingham mentioned again, he's got his studies and his research and what he's heard from people in Birmingham, Alum Rock, Small Heath, those are the only two places he knows in Birmingham. Next we'll be talking about Castle Bromwich. The source is, trust me, bro, trust me. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Look, I've got an imama on my head. I've got this, Arab garment. I've got a little bit of a beard going. I look Arab. I must be telling the truth. I must be telling you something that is absolutely true about the Muslims, because it's negative and it perpetuates stereotypes about them infiltrating, being radical, Islamists, extremists, on the conveyor belt to becoming ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Anyway, he's going to give us a story now.
Some of the Muslim Brotherhoods, they control some councils.
Yes.
And they only provide houses to certain people from the community and abandon others.
So he's now claiming that he heard, this is what he said, remember, he heard that in Birmingham, nowhere else, only Birmingham. What on earth have you guys in Birmingham been doing? Honestly, I by the way, I've lived in Birmingham, so I know what it's like there. Alhamdulillah, it's a very nice place. But he's now claiming that in Birmingham, these people have infiltrated into the council, and then what they then do is they provide housing to certain groups of people, probably, your pro-extremist crowd, so they'll give them backhanders and help them get on the housing ladder and all that type of thing, yeah? There's no evidence, there's no source, there's no pushback from the interviewer, none of this. Obviously, I wasn't expecting any interviewer here from the GB News to push back when he's promoting their narrative that they want to promote, which is that Muslims are a problem. But anyway, the point being is that how can you believe this crap?
All right, so what should we do about it?
Ban the Muslim Brotherhood. Ban the Muslim Brotherhood to protect your children. Ban the Muslim Brotherhood to protect the right of the woman. The Muslim Brotherhood, they have a problem with a Muslim woman who does not cover her hair. They have a problem with a child who does not pray as 6 months old, and they believe in the punishment and capital punishment for that child. The Muslim Brotherhood...
Whoa. What did you just say there? You just said that the Muslim firstly he said we need to ban the Brotherhood, ban them. And then she's going, yeah, that sounds like a good idea because they've infiltrated all aspects of society. Let's ban them. Reality is this is not about Ikhwan al-Muslimin. By the way, I'm not a member of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. I have my whatever disagreements, but that's a separate issue. The point being is that Ikhwan al-Muslimin or Muslim Brotherhood are just being used as a way, it's a whip to try to attack the concept of political Islam or the concept of Islam holistically. It's used, forget about political Islam. That's in the UAE, in these places where they fear any criticism based upon an Islamic perspective against their rulers. But here in the UK, it's being used now just to tarnish the whole of the Muslim community. Say, oh look, all the Muslims are trying to infiltrate, they're these extremists and they're called Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Muslim Brotherhood, etc. Trying to sound like they know what they're talking about when they don't know anything. But anyway, the point is, he's now turning around and he said, let's just listen to it again anyway.
They have a problem with a child who does not pray as 6 months old, and they believe in the punishment and capital punishment for that child.
So, did you hear that? Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Muslim Brotherhood, believe that a 6-month-old child, must be forced to pray. 6-month-old child must be forced to pray. A baby doesn't speak, doesn't walk, must pray. And if they don't pray, what did he say? Corporal punishment. No, sorry. It's not even corporal punishment. He actually said, let me just see what he said.
They have a problem with a child who does not pray as 6 months old, and they believe in the punishment and capital punishment for that child.
Capital punishment. He believes in he says, the Ikhwan al-Muslimin says that if a 6-month-old child doesn't pray, there should be a capital punishment. Does he know what a capital punishment means? He's saying there's a death sentence on children. He's saying in the UK, I'll keep repeating this point because I just want to show you how utterly stupid, utterly, it's not stupidity. It's just anti-Muslim. It's just perpetuating anti-Muslim hatred. That 6-month-old child. Maybe he meant 6-year-old child, but he said 6-month-year-old child. Yeah. Now, even if he said 6-year-old child, no Muslim believes in the capital punishment, forcing them to pray, and if they don't pray, kill them. It's just stupidity.
The Muslim Brotherhood are making that child to become more radical in a Saturday school. They making a virus in your society. They're cancer in the society. Cut that cancer or find a cure for it.
So now he's saying that they're making a virus within society. They're making a cancer within society amongst children. So now these children who are going to these Muslim schools, madrasas or whatever, are coming out radical. So he's trying to say, effectively, he's just casting aspersions against the whole of the Muslim community. All Muslims cannot be trusted. All Muslims are potential extremists, potential terrorists. All Muslims are pro-Hamas or potentially pro-Hamas. This is the case. You got to be wary and fearful. This is what he's pushing as an agenda. There's more extremists in the UK than there are in all over the world, all over the Muslim world. There's more extremists in the UK. This is what he's doing. He's pushing suspicion against ordinary Muslims. And because he wears the garment, because he's got a beard, because he's from the UAE, therefore he's seen as some sort of expert, and we must trust him because he's that native informant.
Otherwise, it will destroy the diversity that you have. Britain is diverse, is amazing. It has the Muslim, the Hindus, everybody, Christian, Jews, all live side by side. But what the Muslim Brotherhoods will do, put all these people in danger. And the best example for that is that the Muslim Brotherhood did not allow anybody to raise the picture of baby Kafir, who was kidnapped by Hamas as a hostage. But we stand with the Gazan children as much as we stand with the Israeli children, but they do not want that.
All right, Amjad, thank you very much indeed. We need to leave it there because we're running fast out of time.
Can you believe that this is something that is being watched and something that's being, his views are being given any degree of credibility, within society. And the reality is that you can say the most stupid, factually incorrect, false things possible, but so long as you're anti-Muslim, so long as you play to the stereotypes, so long as you justify the hatred and bigotry of the wider, anti-Muslim brigade and the right and the far right against the Muslim community, that it will be believed. They'll just bring you on. They'll platform you. This no mark, Amjad Taha. There we have it, inshallah. Just wanted to show you those videos, those interviews that took place. And I wanted to show this because this is not just an individual. We shouldn't think of Amjad Taha as individuals who are, crazy, buffoons. No, these people are speaking on behalf and through the permission of the UAE government. They're trying to promote a particular agenda. The agenda that they're promoting is that anybody who speaks out against foreign policy, speaks out against the Zionist entity, speaks out against the UAE and the UAE's normalization, all of these people are considered extremists, are considered fundamentalists, are considered Islamists, all the types of vile type of words that you can think of in order to create scaremongering amongst the wider population. That anybody who speaks about these things, all of these things, they should be banned, they should be made illegal because they're trying to silence any expression against whether it's Western foreign policy in the support of Zionism or Arab countries that are supporting Zionism. They want to silence any condemnation in regards to this. This is their agenda. So inshallah, hopefully you found this, educational, interesting. Please like, share, subscribe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.